Ladies and gentlemen, the Council will now consider draft resolution L15, Rev 1, entitled Situation of Human Rights in Eritrea. The resolution will be introduced by the delegation of Djibouti and Somalia. Djibouti, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to take the floor on behalf of Somalia and Djibouti, as well as other co-sponsors, to introduce draft resolution L15 Rev 1 on the situation of human rights in Eritrea. The draft resolution before the Human Rights Council today has for main purpose the extension of the mandate of the Special Rapporteur for 1 year, as well as to carry out an update of resolution 35/35 to reflect the latest developments in terms of progress achieved and remaining challenges, in particular on the basis of the report of the Special Rapporteur. The Special Rapporteur reminded us in her last report to the Council that she was not in a position to announce any meaningful improvement, and that the major violations identified on the ground in its previous reports, including those mentioned by the Commission of Inquiry established in 2014 by the Council, remain relevant and worrisome. In addition, during the enhanced interactive dialogue held by the Council in March 2018, the Deputy High Commissioner, Ms. Gilmore, stated, I quote, "I regret to report that this state of affairs remains unchanged," end of quote. The state of affairs unchanged were a clear reference to the lack of progress on the main violations of human rights identified by the consecutive reports of the Special Rapporteur since 2012. This resolution will allow the Council to continue to follow up on the recommendation of the Special Rapporteur, and will give a renewed opportunity of engagement, a fresh start to Eritrea with a new Special Rapporteur. Somalia and Djibouti led extensive consultation on this draft resolution in a transparent and inclusive manner. We thank all delegations for their constructive engagement and inputs, which allowed us to reach a streamlined, balanced and objective text on the human rights situation in Eritrea. Mr. President, the co-sponsors of this draft resolution rely on the usual attention and support of the Council's members and call on them to adopt this draft resolution by consensus as in previous years. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And now I pass the floor to Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. With very brief intervention, we welcome the Special Rapporteur of Eritrea for her last transparent report for updating us on the human rights situation in Eritrea. And as on the draft resolution, we support the extension of our mandate for 1 year. Somalia with Djibouti is a sponsor of the draft resolution L15 Rev 1 on the human rights situation in Eritrea under Agenda Item 4. Mr. President, as I stated many times in front of the Council, my country has continuously supported and will support Eritrea's people's rights to a life free of fear and harm. For this reason, we are disturbed by the report of the existing human rights violation with not much improvement occurred. We welcome the steps taken so far by Eritrea, including the promotion of economic and social rights. However, it's vital that the voices of Eritrean victims be heard. Promotion of the human rights and protection should be placed very high in the domestic and international agenda. We thank all the delegations and co-sponsors for their input, and hope that this resolution will be adopted by consensus. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And let me inform delegations there are 6 additional co-sponsors to this draft. Now we'll hear general comments of the members of the Council. Yes, Slovakia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union. The European Union remains concerned about the human rights situation in Eritrea and about the lack of progress on issues highlighted by this Council in its previous resolutions, in particular with regard to accountability for past and ongoing human rights violations including in relations to the indefinite national service. We believe that the situation requires continuous monitoring and therefore support draft resolution L15, which extends the mandate of the Special Rapporteur for another year. We acknowledge the efforts of the main sponsors to streamline and shorten the resolution and accommodate the concerns of various delegations, as well as to take into account the majority of EU comments, while regretting that some of these could not be taken on board. We urge the government of Eritrea to cooperate fully in the implementation of this resolution, including by allowing access to the Special Rapporteur and other human rights mechanisms, and in cooperating with the special procedures. We also encourage the government to work swiftly towards the establishment of an OHCHR office in Eritrea. Finally, Mr. President, we look forward to Eritrea's report on progress under the Universal Periodic Review and reiterate our willingness to support the government of Eritrea in implementing the recommendations from the upcoming third cycle. I thank you.
I thank you very much. Any other general comment? I see none. If not, then I'll pass the floor to the country concerned for the statement. So, Eritrea.
Mr. President, the Human Rights Council once again is considering a politically motivated resolution against the people of Eritrea. In the past 6 years, similar resolutions have failed to create any dividend in the promotion of human rights. And this is another unwarranted act that recaps this Council's failed experience. This resolution has nothing to do with the promotion and protection of human rights in Eritrea. The futile attempt of the so-called core Western countries and their regional proxies is to vilify, destabilize, and isolate the country. There is nothing new about this sinister objective, but is exposed more than ever today. This year's resolution comes at a time when Eritrea and Ethiopia are engaged in advancing durable peace with an apparent positive implication to the Horn of Africa region. The Council, instead of acting in tune with this positive regional development, has chosen to embolden Djibouti and Somalia to perpetuate their messenger duties for those who have no interest in the peace and security of the region. Indeed, the Council has missed another opportunity to contribute to the advancement of human rights and constructive dialogue for a better regional environment. It is a dent in the credibility of this Council to consider a resolution that has a single political motive to pursue regional conflict. Every country has its own problem in the promotion and protection of human rights. No country has the moral authority and high ground to point fingers on any other country. However, for Djibouti to table a resolution against Eritrea is a mockery and a psychological syndrome of its internal situation. This is a country ruled by a family where fundamental human rights and fundamental freedoms is violated systematically. The adoption of this resolution sends a clear message to the people of Eritrea that the Council will continue to condone the vilification of their history and struggle for regional peace, justice and development. The worst end is that it also undermines dignified engagement in international cooperation. Eritrea rejects the resolution and calls on all members of the Council to reject L15. In doing so, member countries will send a clear signal for a more constructive approach in the promotion of human rights and encourage the emerging positive regional development. On its part, Eritrea will continue its struggle for human rights and dignity, as well as ensure that international human rights mechanism is consistent to the lofty international principles of objectivity, non-politicization and universalization. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank you very much. And there are PBIs for this draft resolution, and they're posted on extranet. Now we move to the explanations of vote before the vote. Members of the Council, the floor is yours. Egypt.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The Corn of Africa is witnessing a very important development lately. We would have preferred that we build on these developments, and hence any resolutions that would increase tension and impede the reaching of solutions for current problems, we would have preferred that we use this opportunity to reach the aspired peace and to help the region. In Egypt, we believe the importance of reaching African solutions for African problems. Therefore, we reiterate that the Africa House, represented in the African Union and its mechanisms and its memberships and the regional efforts that complement it, consider that the optimal framework for the dealing with political problems is, as well as the dealing with the challenges and relevant concerns in the countries. In this respect, we should like to underscore the importance of Egypt refusing special mandates and resolutions selecting specific countries in a manner to select and politicize the work of the Council. This is a negative approach that will not lead to positive collaboration, constructive dialogue, and an effective engagement with the international mechanisms of human rights. This is what has been implicitly accepted and built upon in all the resolutions of the NAM. The delegation of Egypt regrets that both Djibouti and Somalia insisted on submitting the draft resolution in spite of the advice given to them by Egypt by other concerned countries in the world. Hence, in view of the latest development and the implications that will emanate from submitting the draft resolution, we should like to note that reaching peace and African integrity in the African Horn will lead directly to the promotion and protection of human rights in Africa and all its neighbor countries, and the submitting of the draft resolution will only be detrimental and negative on all parties. The draft resolution does not enjoy the support of the concerned countries, those countries that have tried to cooperate with the outer world to reach support. And this is contrary to the manner and way in which the African countries work. This is an additional reason for us not to support this draft resolution and our deviation from consensus and our intention not to cooperate or to accept this draft resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Explanation of vote. China.
Mr. President, it is the consistent position of China that differences in human rights should be addressed through constructive dialogue and cooperation. Human rights is an important component of economic and social development of all states. It should be advanced based on the national conditions and people's aspirations. The international community should acknowledge the progress and achievements that Eritrea has made in protecting and promoting human rights. L15 Ref 1 draft resolution is not in conformity with the above. China will not join the consensus of the draft resolution. We call on the international community to address the human rights situation of Eritrea in an objective, comprehensive and impartial manner, and based on the aspiration and needs of Eritrea, provide assistance and capacity building to Eritrea. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. With this, we have exhausted the explanations of votes. And I have a question. Is there a request for a vote? I see none. May I take it then that the proposal L15 Rev 1 may be adopted without a vote? It is so decided.